wrote a book called Blitz, the all-out pressure of college football's new era. Now, I wanted to ask you a question. Do you miss coaching?
Well, I thought
Was,
I did. Then I look around, and I started to write this book. I've been consulting in NIL for the last couple of years, and talking to coaches and things, and some of the things you're dealing with. I'm not sure I miss it anymore, but I mean, not to be flippant, but I think, yeah, there's no question you miss it. You miss the excitement of game day. You miss seeing guys come in and evolve over time as people and as players. So yeah, I definitely miss it.
one of the questions I wanted to ask you, I know you started out, you went to, you were there 86 through 90 to Fiesta Bowl 86. I mean, when you guys beat Miami, the 5 interceptions of Vinny Testaverde. So you go to UVA, you go to UConn, you go to James Madison. I know your dad coached at Penn State, but the question I have for you, in the 17 years, was there ever an offer or an opportunity to go, because you were, quarterback coach, all that stuff, to go and somewhere else, coaching, like a head coaching? Did you want to be a head coach? That's a question I was.
Yeah, there's no question. But I reached a point, probably 2006, 2007, maybe somewhere in that point, where I was like, that'll happen when my dad retires. I did not want to be somewhere else the day he walked off the field the last time. Plus, I also felt like, it's important for him to have some people he knows are loyal to him around him, that'll tell him the truth no matter what. So those things are vital. And I just felt like I had an obligation to him to see it through to the end. Not that he needed me, but I just felt like, I'm not going to get these years back. So why leave? And now, people can look back and say, oh, you should have left. You can say all you want, but I wouldn't trade the years I had with him through the end of his career for anything else in the world.
Yeah, I feel the same exact way. I feel like, if people are looking that way, that's what the answer I was kind of looking for. I was like, yeah, you're where you want to be, and it's good to be. There's too many yes people in the world to have some people who's going to like tell them like it should be told. Like, you're going to keep it real, as they want to say it. Yeah. So you wrote this book. Now you look at the Big Ten, USC, Washington, Oregon, all the teams that have now joined the Big Ten, and you write this book, which is so poignant now that, I just wanted to, talk about how much the world has changed. I was talking to Carl Park, who works in Eastern Kentucky, and he's been there since 1970. And he was telling how a woman on the volleyball team left to go to a softball team, went to Tennessee because she got more money. And you see, you're part of the board of trustees at Penn State now.
Yep. Yes, absolutely.
So you dealt with the whole thing with James Franklin. The money, when your dad coached, there was no buyouts. 70 something million for Jimbo Fisher. My mind when you coached and now. So that's what and you wrote this book. So I'll let you do the talking, but that's amazing.
Well, the money has gotten so big. Okay. Like when James Franklin was fired, the trustees were not really involved in that process. That was the athletic director administration made that call, but that contract was set in place, 4 years ago, November of 2021, he renegotiated his contract. In that contract, we guaranteed all the money on his contract through the end of his career. Now, since he got the job at Virginia Tech, we don't owe him the $49 million. We came to a settlement that was reported at $9 million, which is pretty, which is accurate. But as it turns out, we probably only owe him about $300,000 over those next 4 or 5 years. But we made the settlement. Everybody's walks away. But the guaranteed money is getting to be ridiculous. It used to be you would guarantee a base salary. And a lot of these contracts, there's a base salary of $1.2 million, but then there's this incentive and that incentive, or this a loan into a life insurance pot. There's all these things they use to get around a base salary. So even back then, I was on the board of trustees, and our compensation committee was in charge of writing that contract and approving it. And I was not in the compensation committee, but they contacted me, and we were talking about, well, because I'd been in coaching. They said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I wouldn't guarantee every dollar in a contract. That's just not something you should do. And I wouldn't give anybody a 10-year contract. It had nothing to do with James Franklin or the person. It was just given all the things that were about to change in college athletics. I told them at that time revenue sharing was coming, and they thought I was out of my mind. I mean, I may be out of my mind for other reasons, but I was right on that. But you get the point. So, I mean, some of these things we could have avoided, but that's the name of the world it is. Name of the way the world that we're in is now.
Because I wanted to ask you, because I'm confused about this. The Big Ten is doing this $2.4 billion that they'll give up 10% stake in their media, and to this I read the article and I was like, why would it? Just seems like a lot of money, and USC and Michigan are against it. What do you think about something like that? Giving up a stake of your conference for that kind of money? I mean, it's good now, but in the long term, I mean, we're going in a direction, especially, I mean, you've been around coaching and everything.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is this, is that deal, it's not going forward yet. It's not dead yet. It's it's kind of on hold partly. And look, the basic gist of it, and again, I'm not going to tell you I'm for it or against it yet because I haven't seen enough. Okay, so what the commissioner has said is that the presidents have the ability to make this decision without their board of trustees. There are a number of trustees that are waiting and say, wait a minute, we're talking about a $2.4 billion deal. We really should have the details. We should weigh in, and we should have some oversight of what's going on with this, because it's that big. You're talking about big money, and you're talking about signing away 10% of your media rights for the next 20 years. And creating this enterprise called Big Ten Enterprises and sending, essentially giving away 10%. Now, in the short term, you get money up front, which every school seems to need right now, because no one was in position. Very few people were in position to absorb the revenue sharing that has come upon us, the NIL, all these things. Because most of us, even a school like Penn State, where we bring in $215 million in athletics revenue, two things. Number one, we're an $11 billion operation a year. So it's not a big part of what we do as a university from a financial standpoint. From a visibility standpoint, it is. But when you look at that $220 million, we are razor thin. Sometimes we lose a little money. Sometimes we make a little money. But there was not $20 million annually laying around for us to deal with revenue sharing. So that's all of a sudden we got 10 million, and there's another 10 million or 20 million. There's another 10 million from the house settlement that we got to pay back NIL to athletes. So now you got $30 million in new expenses every year, and you were right on the edge margin wise. So there's a lot of schools that need that money up front, but it's not free. It's not like somebody wrote you a check and said, "Here's 190 million bucks, have at it." It's you're gonna, what you give out now, and they're not doing it because of the goodness of their soul. They're doing it because they expect a good return. And so a lot of trustees and a lot of Big Ten trustees now are talking to each other, and we have some concerns, and there's some discussion about it. But we'll see. I mean, we just want more information. But it is a sign of times that that's where we're at.
Right. And the book came at the things you talk about, the thing that really hit me was, and I was thinking mental health, because you saw what happened at UAB this weekend. A player stabbed two of his teammates. But the pressure, I mean, you know what you made me think with the book was Lane Kiffin. So Lane Kiffin's now being dangled all these deals. He's got a team that's fighting for a college football playoff. How do the players feel of their coach saying, "Hey, I might be," and I know this happens all the time. The hot team gets to the end of the season, their coach isn't there for the bowl game. It happens all the time, but it just feels like it's ramping up even more. And your book, I mean, I don't know how you coached for a long time, and I feel like don't you feel it's even with writing the book, it's even raised tremendously, the word I'm looking for is not coming to me, but do you feel it's?
There's no question. I mean, I think when you look at all the things that are involved now, Used to be you go recruit a kid, you're dealing with his parents and the kid, and you say, hey, here's your room, board, books, and tuition. And that's what we can give you. And, there were other schools that were, giving a lot more than room, books, board, tuition. They
Yeah,
weren't allowed to, but they did it. But,
right. They did.
but by and large, everybody's coming in with the same thing. And so all the kid had to do really was look at and say, where do I want to go to school? What's the best opportunity? And then once they signed, they were there for 4 years. And if they wanted to transfer, they'd have to kind of go through a process. You take a look at it now, there's agents involved, there's lawyers involved, there's accountants involved, there's all these other people. And some of these people have legitimate people around them. Some people, it's an uncle, it's a cousin, it's whatever, thinks they know what they're doing. But now the coaches, and it's not what room, board, books, and tuition. It's, well, certainly the scholarship's part of it, but it's, well, how much you're going to give me in revenue sharing? And how much you're going to give me an NIL? Can you guarantee this NIL money? And, oh, well, this other school has more. And they're not even talking about, hey, what do I want to major in? Does the school I'm going to give me the best opportunity? That if I were injured 2 days into my season and could never play football again, that I'd want to go to school in. So all these things have gone by the wayside. So and that's just recruiting. Because once you sign them, they can leave anytime they want. So now you got to recruit the guys that are on your roster. And the kids are getting, the parents and the high school coach are getting calls from other schools saying, hey, he's only playing, 35 snaps a game, or only throwing the ball 20 times a game. You come here, he'll be throwing it 40 times a game, or whatever it may be. So there's all these things that are weighing on the players, all these things weighing on the coaches. And then you talk about coaches can jump here to here. And it creates a whole level of where they never can turn the thing off. It's constant.
And the thing is, so when I went to UNC for grad school, I had an Ed Cota jersey, and I'm thinking when LeVar Arrington, they sold LeVar Arrington jerseys, he didn't see a dime. So I'm okay, in my opinion, I'm okay the players getting paid.
Right.
But like you said, every year you got to re-recruit these kids.
Yeah.
They're like you said, the kid is having a pretty good year. I was thinking of a name for you, Jaden Rashada. Remember he sued Florida Napier City, was guaranteed $13.85 million. His dad, he's at Sacramento State. So it didn't work out there. He went to Arizona State 1 year, Georgia 1 year. Now he's at Sacramento State, which is like, he's in the middle of nowhere. And this kid was supposed to be getting all this money. And you're like you said, the mental health, you have to do almost like a financial literacy with these kids because they're getting money they never had before. You got the hangers on, you got the parents. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the book's perfect. I mean, in that sense, like it has changed.
Yeah.
Like,
and the good thing about the book is this. In the consulting I've done, all these stories have kind of, coalesced, whatever. I've got all these stories and things that I've seen and talked to and different schools. And I talk to ADs, I talk to schools and stuff about a lot of things and guys I've known and coaching forever. So when I wrote the book, I wrote it as a novel so that I could tell what's really going on without having lawyers say, well, we have to fact check this, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and we're going to get sued by these people. So I wrote it as a novel. So really, it's what I call nonfiction fiction. It's a fictional account. It's a novel, but it's all based on stories that are very, very true. Even to the point of, how these collectives are run and some of the things that are going on in some of the collectives where there are people in these collectives that are expecting certain things out of players and the whole 9 yards. And so it gets into everything. It's a honest look at what's happening. And because it's written in novel form, it can be brutally honest.
Do you think government should get involved? The government should get involved in all this?
I think the reality is this, and this is one of the things that a number of us as Big Ten trustees have started to talk to each other about. Presidents of universities are jumping every 3 and 4 years. Athletic directors are jumping every 3 and 4 years. Coaches are jumping. So presidents and athletic directors, if they're making decisions about the future of college athletics, without the boards involved, we're the ones left holding the bag. So the inaction that's going on right now to create a sustainable future for athletics, we as board members, 5 years from now, 6 years from now, 8 years from now, governing boards are the ones that are going to be dealing with the fallout. So to me, we've had a discussion about we need essentially a constitutional convention to rewrite what college sports is about. We have to be honest about what we're doing here. Everybody wants to kind of keep that foot in the amateur model. Who are we kidding here? Okay, that's over. I mean, the minute you start saying we're getting 1.1 billion in media rights in the Big Ten, This isn't an extracurricular activity anymore. And the reality is if Oregon played, let's say Indiana for a national championship, and right before the game, the Oregon players walk off the field, the Indiana players walk off the field. Kurt Signetti and Dan Lanning may be the two best cornhole players on the planet. They might be, but we're not going to sit there and watch them play cornhole for 3 hours and sell ads for Dr. Pepper and you name it and Coke and all that stuff. So the reality is what we got to be honest about what we're doing. So I think it's time for us to go back to the drawing board and start talking about what does the future of college athletics look like? What are the rules? And we as governing boards should set the ethos and set what the values and our foundations of what we want this to look like. And then use that going forward, because if not, we're just going to continue to twist in the wind and whatever. Now, once we get to that point, we'll probably need some legislation to kind of codify it so we can avoid the lawsuits that will inevitably come.
Is there certain things you want to see since you're left with the bag? Is there certain things that you can talk about?
Yeah, I think the reality is this. There's an old joke that I used to get told by people, by a wise old man. He said, I was raised Roman Catholic, so there's this whole confession thing, which, I don't know. Be careful, I get struck lightning. But woman goes into confession and she says, "Bless me, Father, for I've sinned. I, had sex with someone who was not my husband for $100,000." Priest says, "Would you have done it for 10,000?" And she says, "What kind of person do you think I am?" And he says, "We know what kind of person you are. The question is, what's the price range? Like, where,
right."
That's where college athletics is right now. We know what we are. We are now in this thing, and we're paying players and we do all these things. So let's be realistic. To settle this thing down, you're going to need collective bargaining at some point. You have to just admit they're employees instead of this they're not employees. We're paying them on 1099. No, they're employees. They're going out there and they're giving you a full week's worth of work. They're playing, they're competing in every sport, whether it's women. I mean, women's volleyball right now is seeing explosive growth. That's going to be a sport where all of a sudden, they're going to need collective bargaining. So let's just be honest about it. Now, how many ADs and presidents of universities will say to you privately, "Yeah, we need collective bargaining," and not because we want to lock it protects the players, but it also protects the school. So if I go and sign a kid out of high school, and we spend a year putting in tutoring, nutrition, training, strength training, all these things. We're investing lots of money into that student athlete. And a student athlete on December 30th can go, or, in first week in January, he's only been here 8 months, 6 months, or 3 months. See, I'm going to your rival school. I mean, that's not necessarily fair. So I think to get those things done, and look, I'm an old school guy. I would love to go back 20 years and go to that model, but that's never coming back. So we got to be realistic about what we are and what's coming. I think that's one way to kind of get this settled down and get back to where now coaches will know generally who's coming back the next year and not have to go recruit 100 guys to stay in their team or whatever it may be. So I think we've got to be realistic and get to something like that.
Yeah, and I also feel like there's kids who are getting like that fifth year, the grad, and you got some men playing against 18-year-olds, which is, especially in college basketball. I mean, I'm like a 24-year-old playing against 18-year-old. That's a big difference in age. And also maybe they could put something in a CBA that you can't go from Penn State to Michigan. Also you're going within your conference. I don't know if they're going to let that fly. I mean, that's something that's maybe too much to reach for. But
no, but at least if you get into a CBA, you say, okay, it's a 3-year deal or whatever.
Right.
If you want a 1-year deal, you can get a 1-year deal. But guess what? We can walk away from it too if you're not as good as you think we are. If you all of a sudden we bring this a quarterback in, he's not very good. If he only wants a 1-year deal, then after the year we go, hey, we got a 1-year deal. See you later. But among all this stuff, and is no one's talking about the academic side of it. And part of that CBA to me in an ideal world would be certain academic markers that they have to meet. Otherwise, hey, you're not eligible. I mean, we don't even talk about that stuff anymore because, quite frankly, it's about all anybody cares about is the football side or the basketball side, whatever it may be. And on top of all the other things that we're not that should scare the crap out of everybody is gambling. I mean, no
That-
one's
that-
talk. No one is
I wrote it
talking
down.
about.
Nobody. Yeah.
Nobody's talking about the threat to the integrity of the games. It's going to be easy because I mean, there's so many things you can bet on.
The
I mean, it's not.
parlays,
It's not
anything.
just. Yeah,
Right.
it's not just the game. It's these whatever prop bets or whatever. I
Right.
don't gamble. Never will. Never have.
Me
Never will
either.
because it's not my thing. Because I'm never going to put money on something I don't control.
Right.
Except when I got married. I mean, obviously, I put a lot of money.
Right. But yeah, you did.
And I have kids
You
and
went.
spouse, and I have no control of them. But that
Yeah,
at
exactly.
least that's a good thing. But when you look at it, you say, okay, how and not just the players. Officials can call holding any play they want. They can call a pass interference anytime they want, not to change the outcome of the game, but hey, the over under is 62
Right.
and you're at 56 and the team's driving and they score up holding, and now all of a sudden, when the clock game's over, and now all of a sudden, that's it.
Well, also you have a kid that's working for the team. Maybe he's working in the athletic. Oh, you know what? He's got a hamstring injury. I'm going to make a phone call. He's not. A starting back's not playing this week. Singleton's out. He's going to be slow this week.
Yeah.
All right. So I mean,
that's in the book. There's a whole situation where you had people that saw the injury report before it was submitted, and they were telling people because that's going on. There's no question that's going on.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, yeah. You covered so much in that book. When I was like 683 pages. So I was looking through it and I was like, wow. I mean, you really went. How long did it take you to work on that book? How long were you working on that book for?
It's funny. I've written 3 books and I've never once, and I probably will do it on the next one to say, okay, here's the day I started and here's the day I finished. Because once you get into it, you forget when you started. It's probably a year and a half, whatever it may be. But while the year and a half was going on this book in particular, things were changing so fast that 3 months into it, now this is legal, and then 3 months later, this is now not legal. So it had to kind of get reshaped 2 or 3 times in that span. I can't remember exactly how long it was.
Well, Quinn Ewers graduated early so he could get that NIL, so he could get to college and get that NIL money early. Where he went to Ohio State, basically didn't do anything but got the money and then went to Texas. And it's happening in high school too. There's states that are allowing NIL. I mean,
Pennsylvania is one of them.
Which is you're a hotbed. You're a hotbed for football. I mean, you've been forever. So, Are you thinking about another book? Or you have another topic in mind? Or you just? I mean, I know you've done a lot. You have a lot of stuff going on. You're a speaker. You do a lot of stuff.
So, one of the things I've talked, there's 2 things. Number one would be a novel like this, but talking about what goes on in boards of trustees at major universities. Because when you look at the billions of dollars that we're dealing with at a school like Penn State, plus the political pressures that are going on now, that's one project. But that doesn't sound it sounds fun, but it doesn't sound fun. But again, I want to be careful when I write that, because if I'm still on the board at Penn State, obviously a lot of us can be drawn from that. There's even people looking at me side-eyed. So I'll probably wait till I'm done on the board and then write it. But in terms of, I've started drafting a leadership book, and in my life, I've been really fortunate. I grew up in the home of a great leader, but also was exposed to a lot of great leaders. Everything from presidents of the United States, presidents of the United States that I've spent time with. I was a surrogate speaker in the Obama campaign. I met with a number of people that tried to get me to run for office at one point. CEOs, Phil Knight has been a family friend, but other CEOs, CEOs of Merrill Lynch, CEOs of Quaker State, CEOs of all these major companies that I've been around. Leaders in business, leaders in politics, leaders in education, great coaches I've been around to listen to, not just ones that I worked with, but also guys I've gotten to know. So there's all these things that have kind of come into my life. And maybe one of the best leaders of all was my mom. I mean, as much as people talk about my dad, my mom was tremendous in terms of those things. So
how so your mom?
My mom is one of those people that she gets on something and she does not let it go. So she's been on the board of the State Special Olympics in Pennsylvania, which is a big undertaking. And every time someone would say, we can't do this, she would simply roll up her sleeves, work a little harder, get it done, and get around it. and there was never an obstacle. And that was just how everything she's done. She was very involved in raising money for Penn State over the years, and she's one of those people who would put her hand in the dirt, so to speak, to get things done. For 35, 40 years, after every Penn State home football game, she would cook dinner. She didn't get a caterer. She would cook dinner herself
Really?
for 40 to
Wow.
50 to 60, sometimes 70 people, lasagna, meatballs, you name it. It was generally, that meal was probably going to be 1,900 calories plus for everybody before
Oh
dessert,
yeah.
and not including wine. But I mean, she would do those things, and then as the night would go on, she would go and individually talk to different potential donors. She kept notes of everybody. Like, she would know, there was one guy that ended up giving Penn State, I think, 10, $12 million, and he would drink this stuff. I can't remember the name of it was, but he brought his own drink to dinner. And my mom's like, okay, well, the next time he comes, she writes down, oh, so and so drinks this. The next time he comes, she's like, oh, I got to get a bottle of, it was like 10 High or something like that. Not expensive. My mom thought it was. My mom's going to the liquor store and she's like, oh, I'm going to have to buy this stuff. And she goes, you guys have 10 High. And the guy kind of looks at me, well, one of my guests, and she goes, how much it cost? The guy's like, $7. She goes, are you kidding me? So that donor comes next dinner, and there waiting for him is a bottle of 10 High, even though he brought his own. But my mom, every little detail, like those things. And that guy ended up giving $5 to $10 million to the university because those little touches mattered. And that's the kind of leadership she was. She would get out in front, but also she'd circle back and make sure every detail was covered. And I've never seen anybody like that. I mean, when they went back after my dad died and started to calculate the amount of money that had been raised from people who had been at our house for dinner after games, it was in excess of $1 billion in donations made by those people
Wow.
over the
Wow.
course of several years. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing she would do.
Okay, so I got a question for you. What leadership skills? What did you get out of playing football? What did it do for you in your life?
Oh, I think a lot of things. You got to learn how to deal with other people. That's number one. I don't think enough people in this world get put in a team situation. One of my biggest worries with my own kids, and certainly people that grew up with smartphones, is the disconnect from each other and the lack of understanding with each other, and looking at people of different cultures or different religions or whatever, and having preconceived notions of what other people are like, because they don't ever spend any time with them, and they don't sit down and talk about them. I mean, the amount of time I spent sitting in the locker room just BSing with guys on the team. When some of the stuff was going on with, when you started to see the way the disparity potentially in the way black motorists were being treated versus white motorists when they got pulled over. There was an incident in college where three guys I was really good friends with, three black guys. We go out, and at the end of the night, we're at McDonald's, and somebody starts saying something to us, and we just are like, just get away from us. They go and call the cops, and they say, three black guys are harassing my girlfriend. Nobody harassed her. Nobody did anything. We didn't know this, so I'm happy. We're walking out of McDonald's, and it's 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, which I not particularly proud that I was there at that night. I was in college and I was single.
You were in
Yeah, whatever.
college.
So I
Yeah,
see
come
a
on.
girl I know, and I'm having a conversation. I look across the street because I was driving that night. I didn't really drink. And I see three cop cars show up, and my buddies are over there. And I go, oh, this is not, I gotta run. So I go over, and and it went from a contentious situation. It settled down when I got there because I'm like, wait, no, this is what happened. So, I mean, I had experiences like that because I was around other people. So when those issues came up, I would say to people, look, you got to understand, and not that every police officer, and that's not to label it, but I've seen some of those things because I had teammates like that, and I understood things. Um, and then you fast forward to, I mean, those are the things you got, and you learn different things culturally about people, because you get to know them. And I think that's one of the things, most important things you got out of football, but also leadership, responsibility. We had a blue line in our practice field, and my dad's rule was when you cross that blue line, you can't do anything whatsoever about a class or a girlfriend or somebody at home. You got to cross that line and be there. And then, as he would then say, look, you got to imagine that Even when I was coaching, he would say, when you go home, be present. Okay, understand you're crossing the blue line. You can't worry about 3rd and 12. You got to worry about what child needs this or whatever it may be. So all these things come out of football. Discipline, being on time, respect for other people's time. I mean, if you were late for a team meeting, that was one of the worst things you could do because it was you're not 1 minute late. There's 100 guys in this room, and you just took a minute from each one of them. You're 100 minutes late, and you're showing me you don't respect our time or their time. So there's a whole lot of things that came out of football.
So you coached 17 years, and I guess one of the questions that popped in my head just now was there had to be a kid you coached who came in, was like a piece of clay, and you molded him in. It might not be a player any of us who watched Penn State over the years. Was there any player that you felt came in and molded and turned him into a great man when he left the university that might not have been a star, might not have been that guy, but have been? Is that a?
I don't ever feel like I molded them. I feel like I had an impact on them, or
Okay,
maybe
impact.
gave them a
Okay,
chance
yeah.
and gave them the opportunity, the tools to make themselves something. So I think it's more that than anything.
Okay,
Like Michael Robinson, he's on NBC Sports right now. Michael Robinson was finished fifth, top 5 in the Heisman. He had all these chances to transfer because he didn't get to be the starting quarterback. In the first couple of years he was there, but when he finally got that chance, he went out and he was Big Ten MVP and had a great senior year, won the Big Ten. And there's a lot of guys that came in that you worked with. We had walk-ons. I mean, the last 10, 12 years I was at Penn State, we had 13, 14 guys that walked on at Penn State and went on to multi-year NFL careers because they got a chance to do certain things and play and compete. So, I mean, and then there's guys that, guys that came in that academically were, came to Penn State that weren't as good as maybe they should have been. But we gave them the support, we gave them the tools, we gave them the tutoring and help. And all of a sudden, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that their high schools, once they identified them as someone who could throw a ball or catch a ball or whatever it may be, they didn't enforce some of the things academically with them. And it wasn't the kid's fault because who at 16 isn't going to take that, without the
right,
support structure? I would have, but I had parents that would put a
right.
foot in my butt. And
Yep.
we actually had a wooden paddle, but which now my
Oof.
kids are like, "What? You got paddle?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a different time and not a big deal." And by the way, I didn't turn out that bad. But
Right.
so those are the ones that you really look back at years later and go, we really had something to do with it. We gave him a chance to and the support system to reach what his potential was.
And you've had a couple you've attempted a couple runs in politics. Is it something that's still you're interested in, or is that something that you
Uh,
would do again?
in this environment, no. I thought about I was going to run for lieutenant governor at one point about 11, 12 years ago. Different
Right.
time and place. And it didn't work out because Pennsylvania had some pretty archaic ballot access laws, and I just rather than try and pursue it and spend 6 figures in lawsuits to try and get on the ballot, it was just one of those things. You know what? God's telling me something here. Now,
Right.
is that I've been approached about running for Congress at one point. I was in the White House with then Vice President Biden, who basically said, "Look, we'd love, we think you could run and win and whatever and that kind of thing." And that was flattering and everything. But I also had to look at it and say, what's this mean for my wife and kids and those kind of things? Because you can take on one of the things I think people forget when they're going to be a crusader for something. Um, when you have a wife and kids, you're taking them along for the ride, whether they want to or not. And I think that's one of the things that sometimes when I've done some things publicly in terms of politically or even on the board of trustees, when I've taken some stances that have been semi-controversial, my kids are the ones that see the things on social media and that kind of stuff. And, I've told them over and over again, you got to ignore that stuff. But, it's easier to say, easier said than done. But
I didn't mean to cut you. What's some of the controversial things? What are you talking about? You
well,
said some of
there's some things where we had some football facilities we're going to borrow money for, and we took a stand and said, look, we shouldn't do that right now. We should be, we've spent in excess of $100 million on a football building. And one of the things that we were arguing, and I argued, was NIL is coming. This is before NIL. NIL was
Right.
really. I said it's coming. We should be thinking about how we're going to deal with that before we. I said your football facility is not going to matter in 2 years, and we should find a way to do this for a lot less money than we're spending. We don't need to build the Taj Mahal. We need to build what is functional and what's good. And I got criticized for that. We've had situations where we voted against certain things in terms of tuition increases or whatever it may be. So some of those things where people get on there and they get nasty,
Okay.
and you just got
Oh,
to
yeah.
ignore it. And I tell my kids, I said, the same advice my dad gave me was don't get in a pissing contest with a skunk. Because even if you're right, you're going to come out smelling pretty bad. I mean, because
Right.
so if you put something out there and you take a stand, and people take shots at you. I tell young athletes, I tell people that in terms of a leadership standpoint, you got to learn to know what pitches to let go by the plate. Because there are guys that I see get frustrated because they swing at everything that's said about them. They try and beat back every criticism, and you swing at stuff outside the strike zone that matters, and you look bad. So you just let it
Right.
go. I mean, so I see people get back and forth to these things. Like like I said, you get in a pissing contest with a skunk. Let it go.
Uh, Another question I have for you. Now CTE has come out more predominantly since you left coaching. Did any of your kids play football growing up?
Yeah, I have 5 kids, 2 sons. One, they both played football. One gave it up because he got dinged a couple times and just fell. But they all 4 of them played lacrosse. And
Okay.
the college lacrosse players and everything. But even in that sport, you got to be cognizant
Yes.
on the men's side more so than the women's side. I mean, the women have less concussions; they don't wear helmets. But the thing about it is they have so many rules around what you can and can't do, and the girls learn how to play without a lot of contact. I still think they're nuts, but that's a whole other thing. I mean, you got sticks and balls, and to
Right.
me,
Yeah.
but put something on your head. But again, the minute one of the things that I skied for years without a helmet. Now I have one because I'd like to be able to come home and if I was going to ski without a helmet, I'd be in big trouble. But one of the things that a ski instructor told me once, he said, once you throw the helmet on, you see guys get a lot more reckless because they think there's this,
Right. Right.
they take more
Protection.
chances, which, I took chances whether I had a helmet on or not. I mean, I like the edge of that, being on the edge. But I mean, so my own kids, if I had a son that came to me and said, would you play football? I think they're doing a really good job in terms of teaching techniques and things right now to try and lessen them. You're seeing less and less. There's much more proactive if the guy is even on the borderline, they're yanking him and making sure they take care of him. So I think that's been a good. We all hate the targeting call, but it's for the good of the game. And you're trying to teach people better. And I think Pete Carroll was one of the guys that really got into the rugby tackling, because I have friends of
Right.
mine that play. I have friends of mine that played rugby, and we don't have the concussions you do, because it's about wrapping up with the shoulder and getting guys down. Plus, we have to get up immediately because the play goes right away. There's not 35 seconds between plays. So you can't lay out a guy and spear him or hit him with the crown of your head because you don't have a
Right.
helmet on, and you got to get up and play.
Did you see the pick from the game Saturday? Penn State player hit the Nebraska player, and part of the top of his helmet cracked. And it was helmet to helmet. It's like they all, and it's much easier, I feel, to watch when you slow everything down for the penalty. That's not how football's played. You don't go I was talking about this with the quarterback, that you don't go and then you're like, oh, let me just roll off the quarterback. You can't play half speed. That's how you get hurt.
Well, I think something people don't realize is one of the things that happens right before, in that 10th of a second before a tackle, before contact. A lot of times, guys close their eyes because
They do.
I mean, that does happen. So sometimes a guy's going in right before contact. He's got his eyes start to close, and now a guy dips, and they hit a guy in that last 10th of a second. And even the guy that's about to get hit might close his eyes. So when that collision happens, sometimes they're not even sure they might think they're here on somebody's head, and the next thing you know, you're helmet to helmet. I mean, the whole idea of targeting, I mean, there used to be times where a guy wouldn't fair catch a punt, and somebody from 3 yards away would launch and put, those are the kind of things that this was put in for. And protecting the quarterback. I think those guys get into situations where they're defenseless and can't defend themselves. And it doesn't, it sucks when it goes against your team. But if you're
Yes.
coaching the quarterback and you get that automatic first down and 3rd and 20, you're like, yeah, I love that rule.
And the thing with so James Franklin gets fired. He has 6 10-win seasons, a winning percentage of over what was it, 680? He won 104 games, and some coach is going to come in now with, with those expectations. Now I know he was terrible against AP top 20 teams, and he went 4-17 against Michigan and Ohio State. I understand that, but the kind of pressure we're putting on these coaches to come in and immediately, he won 100 games. I know he didn't beat. It seemed like every year he wasn't beating Michigan and Ohio State, but he still, he won a Big Ten championship. You went to a college football playoff last year, and he gets. This year, I guess it was because all the money that was put into the hype for the season, and I hate the preseason because Texas was number one, and you saw what happened to them.
Yeah.
But with your school right now, it's like, who's going to come in? Somebody wants the job, but the pressure, the minute they step on, is going to be astronomical, right?
Yeah, I think in some ways that might be a deterrent to some guys because it's like, what do you expect? I think, everybody just kept saying, before they fired James Franklin, people would say to me, well, he can't get over the hump, he can't get over the hump, he can't get over the hump. I said, well, what's the hump? Define the hump. Well, it's a national championship. I said, guess what? Dabo Swinney's won it. Ryan Day has won it. Kirby Smart has won it. Those are the 3 guys that have gotten over the hump that are coaching right now. And, it's so everybody's got these expectations of what they want the next guy. I was surprised Franklin got fired when he did. Because like I said, it was not a trustees thing. And whether it's the right call or not, that's not for me to second guess at this point. But it does. I think the money has gotten so big that we're paying coaches. The money's gotten big on the players, that the fans feel a entitlement to be more critical than they have in the past. I think gambling fans are more invested, and I mean that pun intended, in the outcome of the games than they've ever been. So there's an anger level that comes at that. And I think it takes a very, very strong leader as an athletic director and president of the university to withstand a year of criticism, knowing that there's a bigger play down the road, and stability is very, very important to success of programs over time. But they felt like it was time to make that move, and they did. And so now we got to go find somebody. But at the end of the day, you could hire God Almighty himself, and there will be fans on you, members of your fan base say he's too old, he's never been to the playoff, he's never coached in the NIL era. Well, no, all those things are true, but he's God, but it's just the way it is. Not everybody's going to be happy if, with whoever you hire. And, it's, my dad used to say, if you want everybody to like you, it just doesn't happen. He said, you grew up Catholic, Jay, and Christ had 12 apostles, and even one of them left him. So, he's the son of God. So who the hell do you think you are? And I said, well, truthfully, Dad, I do think I'm the son of God, not because of you, but because of Mom. So, I said, because she's got some otherworldly qualities, Dad. I don't know where she gets it from.
And the book you wrote about your dad had to be cathartic in a way, because, I lost my dad 2 years ago. And when I thought about you, I thought about me, that now there's something pops in my head. I go, let me call my dad. I can't call him anymore. So you have that.
Yeah, even 14 years later, it still happens. Like, man, I would love his advice in this.
Right.
But a guy I coached said to me, he said, Jay, we were talking about this, and he said, let me tell you something, Jay. He goes, your dad's still with you. He said, it's in here. You don't need to call him. You know what he would think. You know exactly what he would think. You just need to think about it. But it was cathartic because when my dad died, it was very, very public. We had a viewing.
Right.
50,000 people came through the viewing, and it was all day one day and half a day the next day. And I decided that if people were going to wait in line in the cold, I was going to be, so we would be there to greet them. So I was there for all but maybe 2-3 hours of the 16 hours total. But I found myself, consoling other people who felt like they'd lost something. And that don't mean that to be like, complaint.
No.
That's what it
No, I
was.
know. Yeah, right.
So
You
it
were.
was
Yeah, you're
public, and then there was a public memorial service that I had to give a eulogy, the closing eulogy on, that was on 3 stations live worldwide. So that was going on, and then you're dealing with all these other things that went with it. So that was the first time that I got to sit in a room and be alone and deal with it, both the tears and the laughter and the things. And I'd be writing something and laughing, and I'd be writing something crying, and my wife would come in and check, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just remember this story," and I tell that story. So it really was very, very. It was a big thing for me to write that book. Even if I'd never gotten it published, I would have written it.
right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I know they made the movie with Pacino. I never wanted to watch it. I mean, listen, Penn State always, you guys had the simplest uniforms, and they were the best uniforms. It
No
was either
question.
blue or white, and that was
The
it. And you knew
our
what you were
road
getting.
whites. I will go to my grave. I'll put a stake in the ground. Best college football uniform in history.
And you have
Awesome.
a great, you have fan base. I mean, I see people all the time, and everybody said going to school there was the best 4 years of their lives. I mean, I have never heard anybody. And now you got Segula, who you got that kid out of the hockey program. You got that kid who came in this year,
Yeah.
who's fantastic. You have a wrestling program. You got Sanderson, who left Iowa State, I think, to
Yeah.
come to, and he's built a powerhouse at Penn State. I mean,
I don't think anybody's ever seen anything like he's built here in any sport. 12 of the last 14 national championships. Every year, it's like, this might be the best wrestling team in history, and the next year they're better. And you go, I mean, they got a kid, and I'm not a huge wrestling fan. I watch it, and
right.
but because I'm essentially a team sport guy. I love watching the whole team interaction as
Right.
opposed to one-on-one. But they get a kid who's like a world junior champion from Japan. He can't even crack the lineup this year. Now he will eventually, but I mean, this guy isn't like your state champ or your regional champ.
Right.
This guy,
Right. He's not a walk-on. This isn't a walk-on.
No, this is the guy who. But I mean, but they come here because and I think one of the things about him, and I've spent some time with him, but not a ton, but enough to be around. And I've talked to enough guys that are around his program and everything. But what I think a lot of coaches are afraid of is, hey, this is the standard, okay? And this is what I expect of you. I'm not going to lower it so that you don't transfer. I'm not going to lower it because I don't want to hurt your feelings, or you might not make this. I'm setting this standard up right now because that's what it takes to win. And I think he's done an unbelievable job of that, to where kids are responding. I think sometimes in the transfer portal with college football, it's, let's rush to make this kid as comfortable as we can, and he'll come to our school over somewhere else and give him money. And in the long term, there are some kids that are looking for someone who's going to say, you know what, you come here and compete. And if you're good enough, and I think Ohio State's got that going on right now. I think Notre Dame's got some of that going on. I think there's schools that are doing that right now.
I really like Marcus Freeman as a coach. There's something about him that I just really, he just gets the most out of his players. And yeah, I mean, I just feel.
And look, I'm a guy that grew up hating Notre Dame, so for me to say that's hard to do, because we played him every year for 12 years. But Marcus Freeman came out of Wayne High School in Huber Heights, Ohio, right north of Dayton. We tried to get him. His coach said, he's close to his family, his military family. His parents really, really educated, really smart kid coming out of high school. And his coach said, look, Jay, the problem you got is when he comes out to your place, he's within 2 hours, he's going to be passing a sign that says Ohio State University, this exit. And he's going to look at the GPS and go, oh, I got another 260 miles to get to Penn State. It's going to be a tough deal. And, he went and played for Trustee and had a great career. And Trustee's another one of those guys that was very demanding of his players. So, very similar situation, but just a ton of respect for him. Al Golden was his defense coordinator, was a high school coach. A college teammate of mine. So Al, and Al talked about, he goes, Jay, the things they're doing at Notre Dame right now are the same kind of things we did at Penn State, just in terms of demanding things academically, smart players, outthinking people. I mean, they're a team right now I would not want to face in the playoffs.
And that's the thing about, you talk about the academics. A lot of these kids can graduate if they really put their mind to it and go toward a graduate degree while they're at school. I mean, you could, and you made me think of too, the connections. You have board trustees, you have leaders of all different businesses, whatever. I mean, these are people you make contacts for life.
There's no question, and that's I think one of the things that's been lost a little bit in college athletics, and I talk about this in the book, is you have situations now where you have kids get up at 8 o'clock, they go to the football building, they have breakfast, they have meetings, they practice, they also have at noon or 12:30, they have lunch, and then they're taking a bunch of online classes. So they're not actually engaging with the rest of the student body. They're not making the kind of friends. I mean, over the years, a number of people that you got to know from going to class or whatever that you stayed in contact with that all of a sudden became, you know, a good friend of mine played hockey at Penn State back in the 90s, and it was just a club sport back then. But
Right.
his teammate he's the CEO of Medtronic, multi-billion dollar corporation. But his career was helped along because of the connections he made, not just on his hockey team, but around people in class and all those things. So yeah, that's another thing that I think I'm afraid of being lost.
Right. The phone is really this. And like you said, with the phone, you can do anything now. You have kids in high school, junior high. I mean, it's scary how much you can do with a phone, and they could create a whole a gambling problem right off the bat, and it's everywhere. DraftKings, it's too much. It's too much. I worry about the kids. That's what I really worry about is how much easily they get influenced. And social media,
Well,
the kid's not going to college. That's what my girlfriend always says. I'm putting my everything in a kid 18 to 22. That's all. I mean, 18 to 20-year-old kids make mistakes. They're
all the
teenagers. They're
time.
kids all the time. Yeah, you
Right.
have children,
Hey,
Yeah.
even kids in their late 50s make mistakes all the time.
Oh,
So,
hey, listen, look right here too. Yeah, no. Yeah, but so that's the thing. I mean, the book. I'm so glad you wrote this book. And everything you've done. Now you're speaking. You do speaking engagements. You also have foundations.
yeah, there's a thing. There's a foundation called. Basically, it's the Impact Award that we've raised some money and given out money to. It started with former players. Our next iteration is going to be not just former Penn State football players; it's going to be former Penn State athletes because we want to
Okay.
broaden it out to other people. We had the first thing about 2 or 3 years ago, and now we're kind of reconfiguring because we want to make this more broad based. Penn State as a university, philanthropic endeavors are really really big here. There's an event here called Fawn, which every February, our students, it's all student run. Last year, they raised in excess of 16, $17 million.
Is
Students,
that the 24-hour, Jay? Is that the
40,
24 hour?
46 hour.
46
46,
hours.
yeah,
Okay.
46 hours. And, but that's it's in the DNA of Penn State. So all what we want to do with these impact awards is make this kind of representative of what Penn State's all about in terms of that idea, that ethos that we are here to do something bigger than ourselves. I think one of the things that's really a benefit to Penn State is having an event like Thon where kids have to get off their phones and sit and meet and plan this and plan that. And you think about, by the time those kids are done with that event, they're, the person that's the overall chair of it has been the CEO of a company that did 17 million companies. I say that, in terms of an organization that did $17 million in revenue. I mean, and put on an event that went on for 46 hours and all that. So, yeah, it's just one of those things that we do at Penn State that, and that's kind of representative of it.
Ooh.
I lost you there for 1 second.
Yeah, I lost you. I'm sorry about that. It's FAWNS.
FAW.
The Fawns. What's the name of the? You said. I thought you said Fawns. The 46
Thon.
hour event.
THON. Thon, like dance marathon. And it
Oh,
just
dance.
got yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you how far it's come. The first year they did it was like in 1972 or whatever it was, and it was an actual dance marathon where like the last couple standing would win.
Right.
Now they're all standing, they all make it. But I mean, that first year they had kegs, they had diet pills to keep people up, all that kind of stuff. Because a friend of mine was, who's older than I am, was one of the first people to do it. Now it's, I
Really?
mean, everything they
Right.
do is calculated. There's certainly not kegs and there's certainly not diet pills to keep awake. But I mean, it's gone from raising $5,000 to 17, $18 million to fight pediatric cancer at our children's hospital. So it's really an amazing thing.
That is an amazing thing. I mean, just Yeah, I love your love for the passion you have for the university, that for the school and everything. And your didn't your dad wasn't the library named after you gave they built a library and they built this
Yeah, my
huge
mom and
library.
dad. Yeah, my parents.
Yeah,
My parents. I think they were involved in that fundraising campaign. I think they put $1 million of their own money into it, helped build the library. There's a paternal library endowment, which started out with a $250,000 gift from them, which is in excess of 25-30 million dollars now. That it supports the libraries and the students and things like that. So my mom even now as she's been very involved in the student food bank, because you have students with tuition and things like that. Sometimes they fall through the cracks. She's given a lot of money to that, and gotten companies to donate refrigeration equipment, food companies to donate stuff. So she just, it's one of those things that there are so many things that you need to do around a university to help young people reach their dreams. It's a lot of fun to see them reach them.
so it almost you think you're more like your mom or dad, because your mom sounds like she never sits still. She never.
Never sit still. I mean, I just said to her today. I was just over at her house today to check on, see how she's doing. And she was, oh, I got to do this, got to make this call, got to get. I'm like, okay, whatever. When I'm 85, I'll just be glad to be on this side of the grass, let alone
Right.
planning on something that's 2 years or 5 years. When you get to be 85, I mean, most people are concerned about buying green bananas when they're 85 because they may not live to see them ripen. And she's talking about, well, 3 years from now and 4 years from now. I'm like, but I've jokingly said to her a number of times, it's like, Mom, if I lived to 85 and 90 years old, I said, when my time comes, I hope you'll deliver a nice eulogy for me, because I know you'll still be here.
Yeah, that's wow. I know you're a busy man. I would love to have you on again if you're ever interested.
Anytime. Enjoy
because
it.
If there's anything else, so you're on social media. There's jaypaterno.com. You're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything else? Is there anything you want to put out there that anything?
It's jvpaterno.com, and then I'm at Jay Paterno on X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it now.
Right, whatever call now, right?
Yeah, whatever. I still call it Twitter. I don't give a damn. Come sue me if I call it Twitter instead of X. I'm on Instagram at JV Paterno, JAY, the letter V Paterno. But I'm all those things, and you can get any one of the books at my website or Amazon or wherever you get your books. And
right.
And so I just keep, I'm busy, and there's always more stuff coming.
Exactly. And it's going to be, I'm very interested to see if Terry Smith is going to be, because the players like him, but an interim coach sounds to me like would be a big, but I saw the way they were playing. I know it was, they look great on Saturday. That team looks like they were locked in.
Yep.
I had a guy in the covers Nebraska. I said, you guys got destroyed.
Yeah.
I mean,
they played really, really hard, and it's good to see them. It's good to see the team perform, and because I'm a trustee, I have to be very careful about what I say about the head coaching search.
Right? Yeah, I understand that.
But people forget Dabo Swinney got hired as an interim, and then they made him at Clemson. Then they made him the permanent coach. Ed Ogeron, same thing. Lloyd Carr back in the '90s. Got hired as an interim, and then they made him the full-time coach, and he ended up winning national championship. So it doesn't mean it will happen. If you were to hire Terry Smith, doesn't mean it won't happen. But I think people need to, give every consideration to what is best. Look, everybody's got some guy they think they want, and
right.
The further away they,
right.
The further away they are from you, the better they look, because you don't know all the warts. You haven't seen them all.
And I don't mean to knock it down, but to go from James Madison to Penn State, that's a jump. That's a huge jump. Well, but Cignetti did it. So, you know what? I mean, but Cignetti been coaching for a long time. And I agree. I feel like there's always someone out there.
Cignetti's in his early 60s, right, and had coached. He's been a head coach for a long time before he got that side. And he's a Western PA guy. I knew his dad. I don't know him very well. But I know, the history of that family in terms of their coaching pedigree. I mean, these are guys that lived and breathed football all their lives. And I don't know any of the, there's a lot of other candidates whose names are getting thrown around, and I don't know most of them personally. So I've just kind of kept my mouth shut.
All right.
Which is,
well,
my wife occasionally said that's when you're at your best.
Say less. Think. I always say count to 1,000. If I like with my girlfriend, I first of all, yes, say yes all the time, and if I have something I'm going to say that I know is going to come back and bite me, count to 1,000 and then say it, and then I won't say it anymore.
Well, one of the lessons from my dad. My dad had a rotary phone until literally AT&T said the lines don't support that anymore. You have to go. Because my mom kept saying, just switch your phone, switch your phone. I'm not switching. So finally he said, why don't you switch the phone? And he said, because I get angry sometimes. And when I pick up the phone, by the time I do this 10 times, I've started thinking about what I'm going to say. And I go, you know what? I'm not that mad. That's
right.
That's
right.
And and Lincoln was famous for, when he was mad at somebody or wanted to fire somebody, he would write a letter, put it in drawer, the next morning read it, and if he still felt that way, then he would send it. If not, he would tear it up. So it's kind of that same, breeze.
I guess there's one more thing I want to ask you. Of all the people you've met, and you've met a lot of people in your life, who was the one person you met that had such a lasting effect on you? Like really, like I always wanted to meet Muhammad Ali. My father went to a book signing. I never met him. I always wanted to meet him. But I was curious if there was someone you met that has stayed with you all these years later, that maybe said something to you, anything?
I think this, and this is, it's more what he said to me rather than necessarily him or the politics involved. But when they were trying to get me around for Congress, I went to the White House and I was in Biden's office with him. And at that time, there were still some things being, I was still dealing with some of the fallout from my dad, the firing and his death and everything. And he pulled me aside and he said, Jay, he said, I want you to understand a couple of things. He said, and mirror, I told you the story about my dad saying, Christ had 12 apostles and even he could.
Right.
At this point in life, I was trying to beat back everybody that was saying anything negative about my dad. And I kind of lost sight. I kind of lost sight of that lesson of my dad. So Joe Biden, we're talking, and there's a bunch, and Vice President Biden at the time, there's political advisors saying, well, if you were to run, we'll do whatever we can. So, okay, he goes, can I talk to Jay for a second alone? Goes, yeah. Pulls me aside and he says, Jay, I just want to remind you a couple of things. Number one, he said, I've gone through some things in my life. And he said, I went back, I thought about quitting. Like, I don't want to be senator anymore. Whatever. And he said, so I went back home and the people at home were very supportive of me and said, forget it, get over it, grow up. He said, but what I want you to understand is I appreciate what you're doing for your dad. He said, you don't have to tell me what kind of person he was. I know what kind of person he was. When we had hearings on steroids in the 80s, your dad was the only coach that came in and talked honestly about what was going on. Said, so I want you to tell you that. He goes, and I also want you to know, I admire you fighting for him. I see your interviews. I see what you're doing. He said, but understand one thing. He said, 90% of the people in this country know what kind of man your father was. They know what kind of person he was, and they want you to keep fighting for him. But remember this, the other 10%, you never had them, you're never going to get them, and the hell with them. And that's one time where somebody who, and Phil Knight's another guy who has pulled me aside on various occasions and had these kind of conversations about my dad. And these are people, they don't have to have that conversation with me, but they had an understanding and they looked at someone. And, when you lose your father, as you did 2 years ago, there is this search for that same kind of mentor figure in your life.
Right.
And both of those men were people who kind of filled that void for me a little bit and gave me advice at some points in the toughest part of my life. I think that's probably, and I know they're big names and certainly, oh yeah, of course you're going to say that, but those are two people that took the time to do something and say something that really impacted me. And they may not even know what they were doing, but they did.
And it really hit you, like the 10%, and that's what you were fighting. You're fighting against. You're like Sisyphus. You're trying to push and it just keeps rolling down. It doesn't matter what you do. You're never going to change these people. You're not going to get them.
You could turn water to wine and walk across the water, and they'd still say something like that.
Right. I do it faster. He made too
Yeah.
much noise.
Yeah.
But so I really appreciate you taking the time. I want to wish you and your family a happy and healthy Thanksgiving.
Same
And
to you.
I'd love to have you on again. And
you know where to
the
get me.
book,
Just hit me up.
okay. Also, again, the book is Blitzed: The All-Out Pressure of College Football's New Era, by Jay Paterno. Jay, thank you so much for your time. Have a really great day. Thanks again. All right.
Thanks. Take care, man.
Much appreciated. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.